Hello everyone, my name is Tiffany. I had never thought that being too curious could sometimes hurt. But since I was little, I simply adored meddling into other matters, for which I was always told off by my parents. But I always thought that I never did anything wrong. But of course, sometimes I did. But once, my mischievous attitude got me into a whole world of trouble. Want to know how it happened? You'll hear the whole story now. High school life is completely different from middle school. These aren't your easy junior classes, where the biggest worry was drama between students. Now, everything is already more serious. I'll tell you right away, I actually never broke the rules before. Yes, I know, there are many of them, and I followed all of them. My father works in the police department, and he strongly believes in the law. He stands by it and demands the same attitude from me and my mom. If you ever see my father, you'd be impressed, because he knows all of the different regulations of work, human rights, his own rights, and can even retell entire articles of criminal code in his sleep. He has been devoted to the service for many years. He has a bunch of awards, and my mother and I are very proud of him. As you can tell, I was brought up in a strict household. No partying late, and I never had situations without proper protocol. My dad is a strategist by nature and had always taught me that if you aren't ready for something, it's better to act only after doing a careful analysis. Maybe his lessons will help me one day. But that one time, something went wrong. It all started with our school giving us more and more homework. The workload became so unbearable that I had to stay up to work on it late at night. Due to all the stress, I became irritable, didn't get enough sleep, and it all greatly affected me. I came to school that day angry, tired, and it occurred to me that only I cared about the classes. But nobody else did. Everyone just copied off of me. At first, I didn't mind, but then I felt cheated. Why did I have to do the work so late and hard, and someone else gets to cheat off of me and get good grades without even studying? I wasn't greedy by nature, but this really got to me. Stephanie came up to me once again and asked me if she could copy my work. You should have seen her face when I refused. This was the first time I rejected someone. She even turned pale and then started laughing and asked, "What? You wake up on the wrong side of the bed?" I didn't reply. I just packed my bag and got out of class. "She has her period. Has Miss Nerd finally learned to say no?" And bam, something burst in me, and I couldn't take it any longer. I swung around and threw my bag of textbooks at her. Stephanie fell to the floor, but then she started calling me names. I left the classroom. Anger was boiling inside me. I'd never done anything like this in my life. Never tried to hurt anyone like I did with Stephanie. My heart was pounding like mad. I desired more unexpected situations. And as soon as I thought it, our classmate Max came up to me in the dining room. He applauded me, and then he said that he had never seen me like this, telling me, "This suits you. We are used to you being quiet," he said, and smiled in admiration. Honestly, I heard his words as an insult, maybe because he was the most popular guy in class and had never spoken to me before. I suddenly looked at my life honestly, and in fact, I do have an insanely boring life. And I desperately wanted to change something. What if I didn't have such a boring life, I thought. If I kept being the old me, I'd miss all the fun things in life. Is that fair? So I decided to challenge Max to prove that I wasn't quiet. The very next day, I came to school and was the first to speak. I said that I was capable of more, and besides, I really was interested in this new me. Max was taken aback by this, and then offered to arrange an excursion to the abandoned places in our city. The idea scared me. There was an abandoned factory in the outskirts of our town, and no one went to that place. It was forbidden, especially for teenagers. There were rumors that there was a secret gathering between representatives of the criminal world. If you don't want serious trouble, then you definitely shouldn't go there. "What, you scared?" he asked me as I was thinking, and I came to a decision. No, I'm not. He told me to meet him there at 11 p.m., and I agreed. Rushing home after class, I quickly did my homework and then pretended to go to bed. Closer to 10 p.m., I quietly packed my stuff up and went through the window. It was a good thing my dad wasn't home that night. He often disappeared at work until late at night, and so I went to the factory. I was slightly uncomfortable with what I was doing and felt nervous and excited at the same time. When I finally got there, this place reminded me of a dump. There was a bunch of metal and high fence over which I managed to barely climb. Dad made me work out my abs and got me to do pull-ups every day, and I knew that someday they'd come in handy. I hid behind the garbage and slowly crept up to the agreed-upon location, the very heart of the abandoned dump. Suddenly, I heard someone talking over there and bent down. It seemed that there was someone there. My heart almost jumped out of my chest, but I had to take a look. As soon as I peeked, someone tapped my shoulder from behind. I almost screamed and they covered my mouth. It was Max. "Shh," he said quietly. I nodded my head and he whispered, "I didn't think you'd come." He took my hand and said that an important meeting was taking place between the gangsters. "You see, they have a meeting with foreigners. My brother is at the head of the local gang here. He forbids me to go here, but I, like you, am curious," he said. "Hey, who's there?" Suddenly someone shouted in our direction, and my knees collapsed. "Come out," they said again. Max, holding my hand, walked out of the shadows. I came out with my head down. And when I looked up, I saw that my dad was standing there among the gang members. Our eyes met. What? What is he doing here? Is he a criminal too? But how? Thoughts appeared chaotically in my head. It suddenly became difficult for me to breathe. He looked at me as though he didn't know me, and I was so confused. One of the men noticed this. He asked with an accent who we are. Max said that we were lost and asked to let us go, but that foreigner came up to us and grabbed us by the scruff of our neck. "What are you doing here?" My voice was trembling so much that I couldn't say anything normally. My father suddenly said, "Just let them go. They're just some kids." But the foreigner did not want to listen to him. He suddenly grabbed me, pointed to the car, and said, "Sit down, girl." I started shouting that I wouldn't go anywhere. Max tried interference, but he was just pushed off like a puppy. Then they took me to the car, and I panicked, shouting, "Dad, help me!" Everyone turned to my father, and he ran to me. And then everything happened so fast. My dad grabbed me, wrapped me in his body, and a fight started. We were surrounded, and I realized that everything was over, that all hope was lost. But then, reinforcements suddenly appeared. So because of my interest in mischievousness, I almost ruined my dad's special undercover operation, and we could have died. You probably can imagine what happened at home. Oh yes, I was sentenced to be grounded for a month, with no pocket money, no outside time, no phone, and internet just for school. But I also realized one important thing. You don't need to prove anything to anyone if you're confident inside. That life, I discovered, was not for me. And it was really important that I understood it. I again returned back to my studious self. It wasn't all bad. Some changes did happen in my life. My parents began to trust me to communicate with my friends more, and sometimes let me invite them to our house. This was plenty for me as a start. The mayor's office decided to demolish that abandoned dump and build a drive-in theater in its place so that there would be no more places for criminal showdowns. Those criminals are now in jail, and Max had apologized 100 times for dragging me there. He turned out to be a brave boy when he decided to cover for me. My friends and I became closer with him. His brother was given a warning. So he, too, seemed to give up the criminal world. In a word, everything became fine as it should have been in the first place. I'm curious, what would you have done in my place? If you liked the video, then leave a like and comment down below. Don't forget to subscribe.